What's up, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of Expert Mentors Live. Man, we are definitely in for a treat today. Been a minute, man. We had the opportunity to run a conversation. 21. I can't
A couple of years ago, dude.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And that was fun. That was fun. That was like one of the guys that I heard the other day. He was like, "Hey, being in 2020, 2021, and selling real estate was, man, the only way that you weren't selling is if you were good at dodging raindrops." And guys would be like, "Well, what do you mean?" It was like, "Are you good at dodging raindrops?" They're like, "No, I'm not." What are you talking about? It's like, well, it was raining sales at that time. And right now it's one of those challenges where it's like, you actually this is a normal market that you actually have to go out and, go and find business. And so it's funny how uncommon it is to find an agent who is doing the classic sales techniques in order to generate business. And so those agents doing that, those, uncommon activities are yielding uncommon results. And it's why, so many that I see are like still on pace for last year and the year before, because they've changed and pivoted their habits.
And sometimes, that's why environment's greater than willpower, and environment, usually drives everything, environment or circumstance. And for what you guys do, I mean, you guys do a massive amount of production. Did you see that time frame kind of force bad habits amongst even the best of the best?
Yeah.
Because it was such a reactive time period. And, like one of the things that I said, just like you were saying there, right? I mean, it was raining sales, but what I saw happening, especially for a lot of agents, their whole sphere was buying. And so buying or selling at that time. So what I started to kind of see over the last 12 months, and would love your take on this, is that people's business that was built off of sphere of influence, right? Those guys kind of stopped because they already bought and sold. So now it's like, okay, well, what are you doing to drive business that's not relationship driven, sphere driven, right? So like, what are you doing now to generate and create opportunities? And I know we're definitely going to get into a little bit of that, but I would love just kind of your take, what you've seen, the dodging of the raindrops, the bad habits, and how that must change to move into kind of a normal market.
Yeah. So let's take the idea of that there's more ways to make business in the real estate industry than just to sell to your friends, because eventually, like, your friends all buy at some point and you need to branch out from that. So I teach that there's 6 ways that you can actually grow your business. So the first and primary is going to be it's going to be your sphere of influence. And so that kind of touches everything. It's like the thumb, it touches all. And then from there, you can generate leads online, whether through social media or realty portals or whatever that, your IDX websites, you can do something like that. You can also grow your business to business relationships. Let's say John owns a restaurant and, he really needs to grow that business, needs servers and wait staff, et cetera. And then you help find people in the industry by just promoting it on your social media, et cetera. All of a sudden, John says, "Great, man, how can I help you grow yours?" And so that's your business to business. Then there's niche groups. And those are groups that like really only John would know. It's only he goes to a church somewhere, maybe, or gym somewhere, or like, he's part of the Italian American club or something like that. And you know what? It's only John's going to go to that specific one. So I can't really like make that broad. So it's niche. It's only to John. And so there's plenty of those that exist. People get involved in the PTOs or mom groups, or dad's hanging out and, just for watching the game once a month or whatever. Those are little small niche groups. And then after that, there's neighborhood farming. And neighborhood farming allows people to say, you know what, I want to focus on a specific region or a neighborhood for a purpose. And that might mean that I want to grow in this neighborhood because it's close to home. It's, it's my backyard. Or someone might say, well, I actually want to sell in that high-end neighborhood, so I'm going to focus on selling in there. And they can grow their business that way. And then the last one is going to be talking about distress sales. And that's going to be the people who go through the various, reasons that they need to sell of death and divorce and disease and, all these, horrible things that happen in life, REOs and, relocations. And there are actual niches inside of that that you can focus. Well, when you put that all together, John, all of a sudden you're like, wow, the world is pretty big in how I can earn my business. And so for those who are just solely relying in sphere of influence or online leads or whatever that is, if any one of those has an influx, you all of a sudden realize like, wow, I'm actually pretty vulnerable to the market shifts that are external from who I am. And so what I'm finding, and probably relates to your initial question, was what happens if all your friends buy? It's like, great, you focus so hard in one area of business and where to get things that all of a sudden, once the cheese gets moved, if you've ever read that book, Who Moved My Cheese, about two mice who go to the same place to find cheese, and one day the cheese is gone. You can continue to go back to expect, I hope the cheese reappears here, or you can take the opportunity to leave and go find new cheese. And for those who have gone and left and found new cheese through different habits or different activities, they're the ones who are thriving in this market. And actually, those are the ones who survive in any market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's discipline to, and it's the other thing, right? This is where the cheese is, but what's the activity, to acquire that cheese as well, that has to be taken into, what is that, right? And I think that's where a big void has been, and why leaders like yourself have been really successful is because, you haven't allowed that leadership void to happen. But the other void is, like you said right from the beginning, man, just the fundamental sales activities that are required in any market condition to have. And you think about it, even the agents that got in, 2021 timeframe, 19, 20, 21 timeframe, they didn't really have to acquire the sales skills required, right? So it's like even brushing off all of our old sales training stuff, bringing the stuff back out. Like I even had teams run back through Jordan Belfort's training, right? It's just like, you got to get back into that fundamental sales training. And I think that's a huge void that's missing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The skills that we learned in 2020, 2021, even into 2022 were speed to lead, urgency, getting out there as soon as possible in order to respond. So we could actually have been order takers in those years and not solutions providers. It was like going into a busy restaurant where you were like, people are just coming in, they're sitting down at the table. It's my job to go out there and like find the thing and come back. It was easy enough in order to do that. But in this one, it's more or less like you're opening up a restaurant where you're kind of like on the street and you're like, hey, would you like this? Would you like this? Would you like this? And it's learning those sales skills there. So we did learn some interesting skills back over the last few years. We just have to realize that like that they're not the same skills that are going to carry us in 2023 and beyond.
Carry us forward. Yeah. So true. So good. So one of the things, and I know you want to kind of open it up and think something that you've actually been back out in the trenches doing yourself. And it's the whole zig and zag, right? So, getting back out and getting plugged back into the neighborhoods, getting plugged back in and meeting the neighbors and actually, knocking on the doors in the areas that you want to be. I mean, I would love for you to just dive right in and open that conversation up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to be clear about this. I want to share this is an outbound activity that we have personally done ourselves. So I'll give you the examples. Out of all of the 6 in sphere of influence, this is the neighborhood marketing one. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is something that you can do in neighborhood marketing in order to reach people that you may have never met before. So agents will say, man, I wish the leads were back. I wish that my phone would ring. And what I often tell sellers or buyers when they're looking for new places, they'll say, well, I don't see a lot that's on the market. I'm like, actually, there's around 82 million single families that exist within the country. 82 million of them. It's just you're only seeing 900,000 of them on the market right now, maybe 1 million right now. But the reality is that they all still exist there. We just need to have a conversation with another 81 million people in order to see, is this a good fit for you? It's not that there's a shortage of houses. There's a shortage of houses that are for sale in the neighborhoods that you want. So tell me where you want to live, and I'll do outbound activities in order to find those listings, and then hopefully potentially even double end deals. And if I'm going to do less transactions, great, then I'll just realize that every transaction is 2 sides. Yeah. And if that's the case, great, I'll just do 2 sides. And I can double my base that way. So this is not like the be all and end all for any of this outbound activity. It's just,
this is just one activity amongst one of the 6 of the pillars of business.
So I want to share this John, and hopefully it's helpful for people because, this is a little presentation that I've done for my team, and hopefully your audience will find a lot of help with it. Again, this is on door knocking. And again, my name is David Brooke, just to qualify myself, which I shouldn't have to do here, but we'll just do it. I sell around 650 houses a year. I run a team of agents in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Florida, and New York. And this has just been helping us lately. I'm going to tell you how to prep, what to say, how to follow up, and what's the whole point of all of this. I'm going to walk you through a whole lot of easy things, where you're going, why are you going there, common misconceptions about, what's the best time that I should go out, how many doors do I have to knock before I get a real lead, how am I going to plan my day if I decide to do this? Should I go with a friend? This seems like a challenging or scary task. Let me set myself up with a goal of how much I plan to actually accomplish within the day. Should I make double usage of my time? Like you just said earlier, John, collapse time and make the activities better. Well, how can I collapse the time? Great. I can record some content while I go along. What kind of information is valuable for the customers to see? Let's prepare some market stats. Let's maybe even give them some buyer offers in the area that we're really working. And maybe I'll show you some examples of door knockings, and then let's have our notes ready so we can measure what matters and, go from there. Does that sound okay, John?
Love it.
Awesome, dude. Well, here's some stuff. Where are we going? A lot of times I pick specific streets. There's this classic example from an online media company. They just did a test and they said, you know what, we're going to ask people in an area, who's the top agent, and they went around and they listed off names. They said, John Kitchens and Michael Reese and Dan Beer and Kyle was, they said all these cool guys, right? And then the reality is they made up a fake name. They made up a guy. His name is David Brooke. And it's a fake dude, and he lives at a fake address. They made a fake online profile for him, and they went out and they did door knocking, they did mailers, and they did all these things. And after 8 weeks, they went back to the community. They knocked all the doors, and they said the number one agent from everybody was that guy they called David Brooke, and they found it was just a made up name. And the reality is that happens because no one owns a neighborhood. So if you're thinking to yourself, someone owns this area or whatever, that's not true. Just pick where you're going to go. And then why are you going there? Maybe it's because you've got clients that want to buy in that area. Maybe because you want to sell close to home. Maybe because you actually want to raise your price point. Go sell in areas where it's higher end. And then when are you going? There's always these reasons, should I go before, after, 4 p.m., before 6 p.m.? Like you can go till I've gone at 10 a.m. all the way till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Everyone's working from home. You knock on the door. They're there and they're happy to greet you. So plan out when you say. Okay, every three conversations for every 10 doors knocked. I'm not joking. 30% is what we're finding when we're going out from a variety of agents. We'll do this at any one time, John. We'll have like 15 agents hit the streets in specific towns, and we're all reporting back to each other in these group chats. And they're like, great, man, knocked 10 doors, got 3 people who answered. And it's very interesting that you get to hear exactly what the public thinks about what's happening in the market when you talk to them.
Yeah, it is. That is remarkable. And especially with everything in the new, the bigger, 30,000 foot view conversation that's going on that people typically tap into. And then they think they know what their neighbor is doing, yet they don't really know what the real truth, the facts are.
That's right, because they don't actually see the data. And that's what we'll get into here in a second. And so just getting quickly back to this here. So to get back to this, John, the numbers say 30% actually show up. What do the numbers say on a listing? For one listing for every 50 doors you knock. So go knock 100 doors in there. That's hard to do in a day. You can knock 50 pretty easily. That would take you about 3 hours in order to do it. But if you do that, there's about 1 listing that you can generate. And I'm not joking. You do this every single day. That's how you add a listing a day to your database, which is pretty darn impressive. I'm going to show you how you can actually do that through follow-up, et cetera. No, you're not closing them right at the door, although sometimes it's happened. Plan your time, breaks and parking, plan your lunch breaks, park in a location where it won't be an inconvenience. Other people are coming through. Don't park in front of somebody else's, right? Go with a buddy. A lot of times it's easier when you're with somebody else. It kind of eases your nerves. Even eases other people's nerves when you show up in twos and all of a sudden, you're having a conversation right at their front door. They're like, hey, what's up, guys? You're like, hey, we're just, walking the neighborhood, and I'll give you the script that we use. It's, hi, I'm hand delivering some mail today. I work in town, and a lot of their buyers would love to live in a neighborhood like this one. Just figured I'd hand the sheet out to you, man. It's been pretty interesting. What have you heard recently about the real estate market? They're like, oh, dude, we have no intention of selling. I'm like, great. I wasn't thinking that you did. Let me just ask you though, and look to the left and to the right. Which one of your neighbors, out of curiosity, do you think would be moving over the next few months? And they're like, oh, Jimmy down the street's been talking about, like, that's how it happens, man. And it's very organic like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they definitely want to, hey, go talk to them over there.
Go talk to them over there. But the cool thing is when you go talk to Jimmy, you're like, hey, Jimmy, hey, John down the street said to come to talk to you. They're like, oh,
said, oh, did he?
Oh, did he? Set up a challenge for yourself. Don't stop door knocking until you've knocked 100 doors. I'll tell you what, if you can do 100 doors, give me a call. I'll hire you on my team. That'd be amazing if you could do that in a day. But maybe set that out for yourself. I'm going to do 100 doors in a week, and go out for yourself, hit 15, 20 doors a day, and you'll see how quickly this adds up. Okay, plan to what to record and get some goals and objectives around that. If you're out there in the neighborhood, I've done a reel. It just like literally popped off, dude. So I'm walking around like this. I'm like, hey guys, I'm out today, and we're just knocking doors in this neighborhood in Simsbury. There's a lot of buyers looking for homes, and instead of waiting for homes to come to the market, my name's David Brooke, and I'm out here knocking doors to try to find a home that fits for your buyers. If you want, go ahead and shoot me a quick DM or leave it in the comments, the neighborhood that you're looking in. I'll go ahead and knock those doors for you and be in touch. Like, it's amazing what people are like, this guy's doing that. Like, my agent would never do that. I'm not calling that agent back. I'm calling this guy. He's the aggressive one who's going out there and he's being proactive. So we're talking about what content to record. We also prep and get some market statistics in place, some real, easy ones, median sale prices, days on market, amount of homes sold, monthly supply, just to give that to people. And we'll show you an example like a little bit later on. We also prep some of the buyer's offers that didn't get accepted. So even if, like, let's say, John, you sold a house down the street from me.
Yeah.
And I know that John Kitchens is crushing it on listings, and I'm a brand new agent. I'm like, I'm David Brooke. What can I do? Right? I'm brand new in this business. I'm scared to even go out on a buyer plan. I don't know what to do. I would find John, and I'd find the listings that he works on. And I would go to the open houses. I would see how it is. And then I'd know that property is going under contract probably on Monday if they had the open house on Sunday. Now I'm going to walk around that neighborhood and say, hey, there's a bunch of buyers that weren't actually able to make a deal on this property. What about your house? Like, where did you guys think about moving next? And that's been extremely helpful as well. So if you are the listing agent on that, you can actually bring some of those offers around. Obviously, definitely redact the names, etc. Here's a couple of examples of what we use. This is like double-sided. So here, we've sold X amount of properties or whatever in these past years. Here's an example. So I'll give two examples for you that you can use. One of these is through a program called Flow Code. So go ahead, and if you want to write that down, use Flow Code. You basically scan it with your phone, super easy. And then when you scan it, people are going to be like, oh, cool. They're going to learn a little bit more about what you do in order to get information on your business or the market. And so it's going to shoot a direct text over to you. So it'll say, if you scan that, go ahead, and if you wanted to take a picture and it'll send a direct text to me. It'll say, hey, David Brooke, is it a good time to sell in Simsbury, Connecticut? Now, on the other side, it gives you an option, and I use a program called HomeBot for this. You can scan it in, and it'll show you what your house is worth. And then my script for that is it worth more or less than what you expected? And the reason behind this, John, is we want just conversations happening with our neighbors. I'm not trying to close you that day. I'm trying to say, can we start a conversation about, is it a good time to sell? I want a conversation about, is your house worth more or less than what you expected?
I love that. That is good. That's just the question, right? Get the conversation going.
Yep. Because if you get the conversation going, you can take it further with a deeper conversation to where to go from there. Here's some other examples. Feel free, just go ahead and screenshot this. Rip it, guys. This is all your stuff. John provides you with amazing resources for this reason, so you can just copy paste, right? Examples of door knocking here. Here's the Simsbury real estate market and what's happening here. We give them the increases, a little bit of narrative, a couple of graphs in case they're visual. And once again, there's that flow code there. Here's the opposite side of exactly that same thing of, is your property worth more or less than what you expected? And that's been super helpful for us. Let me give you exactly what tends to happen. We're going to go up to a property. We're going to go knock, knock. John's going to go, hey, how's it going? I'm going to go, hey, my name is David Brooke, and I work in town, and I'm just hand delivering some mail today. I just want to hand this over to you. John's going to grab it. He's going to say, thanks so much, man. What do you do? And that's when the conversation starts. Great. I help buyers and sellers buy and sell properties. And what we're looking for today is we're looking for a home in your neighborhood, and it doesn't have to be yours. Like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Left and right. Who do you think is going to sell? Awesome. What have you done to your property? And when they ask, oh, it's worth a lot more than what I expected. How much more? And you ask them right there. If you want, John, do you want to scan this right now? Just see what your house is worth. They're like, great. And then I'll say, well, listen, as you know, I haven't been in your house, and neither is Zillow or any of the other realty portals. What have you done? Because I'd love to update that right now. And they're like, oh, great. And I'm like, cool, just put in your email address and I'll shoot you back the update. And now I've got a lead. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That simple.
It's actually pretty simple, dude. So when I go through this, I actually track what I do. So I have my notes, my note apps ready. I write down how many conversions that I've got, any, doors until a conversation, how many leads that I got, how many appointments I got, and anything else like notable conversations. If I go to 123 Main Street and the guy's like, hey, I never want to hear from you again, I'm going to write that down. But if I go to 456 Banana Street and the guy's like, come on in, man, I'd love to show you around, then I'm going to definitely put that down, because what's going to happen is eventually we're going to set up the follow-up plan. And this is my 5-step follow-up plan. Please go ahead and just screenshot this. John will probably give you a better one with more steps on top of it. But here's what it is. I skip trace the addresses that I've walked. That's the first thing. I skip trace them. Then what's skip tracing? Skip tracing is gathering, if I know the addresses, then I can also get the names and email and phone from it. So what I'll do is I'll pull that information and I'll import it into my follow-up process. It's my CRM that I happen to use. And then from there, I'm going to add those notes that I had from my apps. I'm going to add, or it's my note app. I'm going to add those notes into the actual, those locations, those addresses. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in my calendar, just as I had a date to do the walking and talking. I'm going to put in a date there to do the calling and talking, because everything should come down to a phone call or a face-to-face conversation. All of this stuff that we do, all the cool AI stuff, all the cool tech stuff, it's never going to lead you to people buying houses without you ever talking to them. Like, very few and far between, right? The actual, bread and butter is you meet in front of people, belly to belly, face to face, eye to eye. And so we'll set up a call date and call through those guys and say, hey, I'm sorry I missed you. We happen to walk in your neighborhood and we left you something. Did you get it? Awesome. Can I mail it to you? Can I stop by another time? And then what we'll end up doing is we'll send out a mailer to the neighborhood. If you don't have a whole lot of money, maybe skip this step and do another walk and drop these off. And then the last one is going to be set up a quarterly door knocking schedule for mailers and walks at the same time. So that way you're overlapping and they're like, this guy is everywhere. Well, here's the point. It's not super long. It's to build a huge local presence. The point of every dollar spent on ads is a face-to-face conversation. So instead of waiting for the inventory to materialize, go and create it.
Go create it. I love that. And, one of the things that kind of comes to mind, kind of talking through this is, and it was one of the big, the big hooks that we used to always use, is just the off-market strategy, right? Just finding off-market properties. We used it as, hey, sign up and we'll get you access to all the off-market properties.
That's right.
In the neighborhood, being able to have that item of value. And I think that's just kind of where it's really come back to, just with the inventory shortage. People were like, yeah, I'll sign me up for what's not on the market. What can I not find on my own that you're able to find, which creates more value? And I loved how you said that everything has to lead to a conversation.
That's right.
You're just getting to the conversation quicker. Just with the outbound strategy. And, one of the things that really you said in our first conversation back in 21 is that no matter what happens in real estate and all of these activities, it's still real estate, the transaction itself will always come down to a decision of trust. And so that's what, ever since you've said that, I was just like, yeah, duh. And it's just authenticity times time is what builds trust. So how are you showing up consistently in the neighborhood? What is your your direct mail strategy? How does that align to who you are? You're out there, you're hustling, you're doing things that other agents aren't wanting to do, and they're seeing you do the work, which is really powerful. For a lot of people, they really want to see that.
There's going to be some agents who in your audience, understandably, and maybe they'll last through this purge of realtors who end up leaving the industry, unfortunately, but some of them are going to hang on to this, that They're not going to create these objections in their mind in order to go out there and go knock some doors. So let me give you just like some real interesting just anecdote from having done this personally. Again, I do this personally. Yeah, I sell 650 homes, but I'm going out there in the trenches and knocking doors every 2 weeks. And that's so I know, and I feel like this is exactly what the public's hearing. And this is their perception on the real estate market in my area. So the other day I went and I walked a $300,000 neighborhood, 3 to like 500,000. We walked that, and a lot of people were home, more than I thought. Right, they're home and working from home. Didn't have a whole lot of time to hang out because they were like on Zoom calls or they had something else that they were doing. Right. And I walked that through, and plenty of doors that didn't answer, and we just left everything. We got about 20 people using the flow code out of like probably 40 doors walking, which is good. And then we decided to walk $1 million neighborhoods. And I know there's a lot of guys out there who are like, "Oh, never walk that," right? Like, what are they going to think? Or I'm not $1 million like listing agent. I'm like, okay, cool, go be one. Mm-hmm. And so I went and walked those doors. Way more people were home. Way more. They owned the companies. They were executives and had work from home privileges or whatever it was. They all answered the door. And not only that, they were impressed. I'm not joking. They were impressed. I had a guy who owned an insurance company, and he opened the door and he goes, "Are you doing door to door, bro?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, I own the company in town and I'm working door to door." And he was like, "I really dig that. That is the type of initiative that I want to see in a sales guy. If I only had guys like you working for me." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Cool. Well, I can work for you. Where do you guys want to move next?" Yeah. That's the idea behind it. So it's like, this should really, really hit for some sales agents out there who are like, "Okay, today's the day. I'm going to make a decision and a commitment with John. I'm going to make a decision today in order to I'm going to do something different."
You know what I love, Dave, is when you hit the executives, when you hit those that are in charge of other humans, right, within the workforce, because it, just like anybody else that is a small business owner, finding people that want to work is one of the hardest challenges to find right now. And when you're out there doing the work, you're going to resonate highly with what you just said. People are going to be like,
"That's it, John.
Where can I find more of you?"
That's exactly.
And I love that line right there. Right? Yeah. Hey, I can work for you right now. Where are we going? Where do you want to move to?
Yeah, I remember. By the end of the neighborhood, we had like 4 houses to knock, and I had taken my assistant with me, and he was doing cool stuff. He took his phone. He's like, "Here's what we're doing today," and we ended up knocking the door of one of the presidents of one of the largest employers in the area, and I had no idea. His wife came to the door, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, well, we have no intention of moving at all." And I was like, "That's okay. What do you think?" Blah, blah. She's like, No, but maybe you can help us. Do you guys work anywhere else in, outside of Connecticut? And I was like, "Actually, my brokerage is global. So I don't care if you're buying here or you're buying in Dubai, I can help you. And in fact, we can help vet agents and do that." She goes, "Can you really?" I said, "Yeah, cool. Where are you looking to move?" And she was like, "Well, we want a lake house in Tennessee. And we were wondering if you could help us out with that, because we'd love to have agents who do this kind of work over where we're looking to move." And I was like, "That's awesome. Are you looking to sell a house?" They're like, "David, no, we're not going to sell this house. We don't sell real estate. We buy real estate." Right. Yeah. And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. But now at least, they can see from your activity that fine. That might lead to, $1 million or $2 million second home or something like that you can get a referral fee off because I knocked the door." Right. And that's the kind of thing that when I talk to sales agents and I'm like, "How long did you spend online prospecting?" And they're like, "I spent an hour or two." I'm like, "Did you get any call?" And they're like, "Maybe I set an appointment." I'm like, what if you could add to your health and your wealth? You could walk and get your steps in. You feel really good about yourself. You're going to come home and be like, "I knocked all these doors." You handed out, you actually did activity. You didn't sit there just like calling through somebody and thinking, "Oh, maybe they'll buy or not." You can actually talk with the people and get, hear what they're thinking every day. So this has just been helpful for us, John. I hope it's helpful for people who listen.
It really is. What do you like talking to your team, talking to the agents, kind of coaching them through this? To me, the biggest constraint, the biggest challenge would be the belief in their thinking in themselves. So how do you kind of coach them through getting over that mental barrier of scare of getting out and actually knocking on people's doors?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, is people have to see it through emulation. So the first thing that we did was we did it in a team meeting. So we put the big whiteboard up, we pretended it was a door, and we go through the very dynamics of it. It's like, okay, you're going to all pick your area, write that down. Great. How many doors are you going to knock? Write that down. How long would that take? Write that down. Put that on your calendar now. Okay, cool. Now let's go up right up to the board, knock on the door. And I did it first. Knocked on the door. I had a guy come to the door and I emulated for them multiple times in a row how to do this. And then we picked people on the team meeting to come up and knock on the door and go through that whole process together. Then we had a team day where we went out and we did it together. And so it's not like all together in the same neighborhood. It was, let's all meet up at the office. We do a little bit of role play. We bought coffee for everyone and donuts or whatever, bagels that day, not donuts. You don't want that day. And then you're going out into the neighborhoods and then you're checking in. We had a check-in point during the day. And then we had another check-in point later on. So a lot of the stuff that comes up in people's minds were quickly, now here's the answer to the question, were quickly resolved when they saw the action of others.
Yeah.
So today on my pump up call, I talked about, I didn't talk about borrowed belief, but it has to do with this. We talked about the idea between taking action. There's people who prepare and never actually take action.
Yep.
And I talk about this idea where there's too little information where you don't have enough information to make a decision. Then there's too much information where you've read so far into it that you've probably spent more time than you needed to in order to make a decision. Yeah. It's like that Colin Powell's 40-70 rule, right? It's like I need 40% of the information and I don't need more than 70%, right? At that point, I can make a decision in that zone. And I asked the guys on the pump up call, I said, how do you know that you've got enough information? It's, can you take the person from A to B, not A to Z, A to B? And my question to you and how to build confidence is to do something small and remind yourself you did that small thing. So can you print out something? Sure. Can you put something on your calendar? Sure. Can you knock on a door? Sure. What's the next thing you need to do? Can you hand them a thing and answer a script? Yes. Cool. If you can do those things, you're good. You can go and do this today. Everything else that comes into it is a lot of times many just excuses. And we found that when they saw we use Slack to communicate with our team. When they saw the Slack messages, and we ask guys, post videos, they're like, oh my gosh, I just walked 15 doors and I talked to 3 people. One of them wants to set, that was encouraging. People were like, it's real.
Yeah, the proof. I love that. Dave, so, the strategy around, like you said, around, borrowing other people's open houses, borrowing other people's listings, right? Being able to leverage that, just speaking specifically to the neighborhood specific strategy itself. I know you had the neighborhood mailer in the calendar when you're going to do this again. Is there any other type of direct mail that you start to send and increase that frequency to the neighborhood? Is there certain other strategies now? Once, let's say, you say, hey, we're balling on a budget, we're hustling, we're outbound activities, but now we're starting to get some business, we're starting to get some market share within this neighborhood. Do you then start to layer a little bit more in? Do you look at if you've got a great, master plan community, for example, that has, a community pool or, a lot of these master plan communities, especially now, you're starting to see little restaurants, bars inside of there, they're always doing some type of activities. Where else do you start to layer in on top of this?
Yeah. So if, this is not a plug, but if you follow me on social media, just for an example of that, right? It's David N as in Nicholas Brooke. You can go and just watch me and see how I do that on for myself, for my own reels. So I did this right after we had a door knocking in Simsbury, which is the town that I live in Connecticut. And so I'll go and we have a huge amphitheater where we have shows every Thursday night and throughout the entire summer and into the fall. And so what I did was I took the schedule for all of those and I did a reel with that, tagging Simsbury Chamber of Commerce, tagging the amphitheater, tagging in everyone who's a part of that, who all shared this post, by the way. And I was like, hey, you probably saw this show up in your mail, which is all of the dates for these great, shows that are happening at the Simsbury Meadows Fest. I know I'm excited to go. I hope you are as well. My favorite one is that, and I list through. So that way people are like, now they saw the door knocker and now they see me on social. And then you're layering that in with the mailers that we put out. Now, again, John, I don't want to go too far because I did build this pretty big. I've got landing pages for the neighborhood, like built out. So when guys go, they pull a QR code on some of these that go to a neighborhood. It's like, hi, Simsbury neighbors. My name is David Brooke. And I'm just letting you know that, like, when we're talking about the market and what's happening and that buyers are interested, go ahead and click below to learn more information for a market update. And it sends them a market update webinar. And so, like, we really built that out huge. You don't need to build that out huge. I just want to be clear. You don't need to build that out huge, but it does for those of your listeners who are at that veteran level. We have built it out pretty big.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, to me, this is like, it's either check equity or sweat equity right now. It needs to be a lot of that sweat and getting out there and making that connection, start to have some conversations, and, nothing's going to happen without leading to a conversation. So I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good, man. Brother, I really appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're running and gunning a million miles an hour, expanding into so many markets and having fun, but really what this whole Expert Mentor series is about is exactly that, right? Really just pouring into what's working, pouring back into this awesome Honey Badger Nation community. And man, I can't thank you enough for jumping back in and adding a ton of value.
Well, let me show the gratitude back to you and say thank you for your leadership and forming this awesome nation that you've built with others. And so I'm happy to be a builder there with you.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you, brother. Guys, make sure you get connected with David. He is definitely a rock star, as you can tell, doing big things that are working into today's market, building the skills required that will transcend any market climate. So get plugged in, David and Brooke, all over social, and we'll catch you guys next time. See ya.
All right.